Have you ever had one of those days where you sit alone, staring at your own business numbers, wondering why things aren't moving the way they should? That was exactly where I found myself not too long ago. I had products, I had ideas, and I had the willingness to work, but for some reason, nothing really clicked. It felt like walking through a market where everyone else was selling out, while my shop was the only one with silent shelves and untouched items. I kept questioning myself. Was I missing something? Was I not good enough? Or was the whole world moving fast and leaving me behind? In the middle of all that frustration, one thought quietly bubbled up in my mind, almost like a gentle reminder from somewhere deeper. I suddenly remembered the story of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he became a prophet, when he was still a young man building his life through trade. People love to talk about his kindness, his wisdom, his leadership, but not many actually pay attention to how he used to do business. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain at that moment, that thought grabbed me. Maybe because I needed help. Maybe because I needed guidance. Or maybe because I was simply desperate enough to look anywhere for answers. Whatever the reason was, I found myself diving into his stories, hoping there was something in there that could help me understand what I was doing wrong. What surprised me almost immediately was how different his approach was compared to what we're used to today. We're living in a time when businesses are obsessed with speed, profit, conversions, funnels, algorithms, metrics. Everything needs to be optimized and automated. But when I read about how the Prophet traded, the first thing I noticed was how calm everything sounded. There was no impression of rushing, forcing, or trying too hard to convince people. There was this quiet strength, a steady presence that made people feel comfortable without any pressure. And the more I read, the more I realized something important. He wasn't successful because he used complicated strategies. He was successful because he understood something that most people don't even consider anymore: how to make others feel safe. That idea hit me harder than I expected, because when I looked at my own behavior, I realized I had been treating business like a battle. I was trying to outsmart competitors, trying to push sales harder, trying to chase customers, trying to beat deadlines and trends. But I rarely asked myself what customers felt when they dealt with me. I rarely asked whether I made them comfortable. The truth was, I probably didn't. I was too focused on results to think about relationships. Reading about the Prophet's early life felt like opening a window in a stuffy room. I learned that even before he reached adulthood, he was already known for having a calm nature. He helped his uncle with trade missions, joining long journeys across deserts under the burning sun. He wasn't paid much. He didn't handle luxurious goods from the start. But what he had, something that later became more valuable than gold, was trustworthiness. It came from hundreds of small choices: speaking politely, listening carefully, never cheating, never exaggerating, never hiding flaws in the goods he carried. People remembered him not because he tried to impress them, but because he never disappointed them. One particular moment stood out to me like a lantern in the dark. It was said that travelers and merchants often competed fiercely for attention in the markets of Arabia. Some shouted loudly, some made bold claims about their products, some argued aggressively to get the best price. But Muhammad was different. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't beg. He didn't approach people with pushiness. He simply stood with dignity, spoke gently, and allowed people to come to him. And when they did, he treated them with sincerity. That behavior alone made him stand out from the crowd. His calmness was his strategy.
His patience was his marketing. His honesty was his advertisement. As I imagined that scene, something clicked inside me, something so simple, yet something I had never fully practiced in my own business. I began to see that selling was not only about convincing people, it was also about inviting them into a feeling. If they felt respected, they stayed. If they felt rushed, they ran. And in that moment of reflection, I realized I had been unintentionally pushing people away without even knowing it. I remember one night where everything suddenly felt heavy. I had spent the day trying to figure out why my customers were choosing cheaper sellers online, even though my quality was better. I thought maybe my prices were the problem, or maybe my photos weren't attractive enough. But after reading more about the Prophet's approach to business, I asked myself a question I had never asked before. Do people feel safe buying from me? Not safe in the sense of physical safety, but emotionally safe. Safe from being tricked, safe from disappointment, safe from being pressured, safe from wasting money. And the honest answer was, probably not. That realization stung a little bit, but it was the kind of sting that wakes you up instead of breaking you. It made me sit down and rethink everything from scratch. I began imagining how the Prophet would handle customers if he were living in my time. He would answer calmly. He would explain clearly. He wouldn't hide flaws. He wouldn't pretend he was the cheapest. He wouldn't chase people. He wouldn't try to look perfect. Instead, he would focus on being consistent, present, respectful, and honest in every interaction, no matter how small. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how powerful these simple methods actually were. They didn't just help him make sales, they made him unforgettable. People trusted him, even with large amounts of goods. Some even entrusted him with their entire business operations. And that trust didn't come from marketing tricks. It came from character. That was the turning point for me. That night, I made a promise, not a dramatic one, just a quiet decision in my heart that I wanted to rebuild my business the way he built his. I wanted people to breathe easier when they dealt with me. I wanted them to feel that no matter what happened, I would be fair. I wanted to be someone they remembered, not because I sold them something, but because I treated them well. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first real step I had taken towards success in a very long time.
When I decided to reshape the way I handled my business, I honestly didn't know where to begin. It felt strange at first, like trying to learn how to walk again, even though you've been walking your whole life. I had been doing things one way for so long. Fast replies, quick sales, firm decisions, promotional tricks, that slowing down and being more mindful felt like something entirely new. But I remembered how calm the Prophet was when dealing with people, and I felt that maybe the real change I needed wasn't in my products or prices, it was in my attitude. The next morning, I opened my phone and looked at the messages from customers. Normally, I would rush to answer them, trying to be the fastest so they wouldn't run to someone else. But this time, instead of simply replying with short answers, I took a moment to breathe, smile a little, and respond as if I were talking to someone sitting right in front of me. Not overly formal, not stiff, but gentle and respectful. One customer asked about a product I had, and usually I would give the standard answer, "Yes, available. What color do you want?" But that day, I replied more warmly. I explained the details clearly, mentioned the strengths, and also the minor flaws, things I would normally hide because I was afraid the customer wouldn't buy. But to my surprise, the customer thanked me for being honest, and said, "I appreciate the explanation. Most sellers don't bother to say things like that." And just like that, without pressure, the sale happened naturally. It was a small moment, but it felt like the beginning of something meaningful. I realized that people weren't just buying products, they were buying trust. And trust grows slowly, just like how the prophet built his reputation long before he became successful in business. It wasn't something he achieved through one grand action. It was a collection of small, consistent choices. The stories about his trading journeys kept playing in my head. I read again how he joined caravans across dangerous routes, experiencing harsh weather, long days, and uncertain nights. But no matter how stressful the journey was, he never allowed the fear around him to turn into dishonesty. Whenever a buyer asked him about his goods, he answered truthfully, even when the truth wasn't attractive. He didn't decorate his words to make a sale. He didn't pretend. He didn't manipulate emotions. And because of that, people never hesitated to return. I began to understand that sincerity was his real currency. There was a particular story that captured my attention deeply. Once, when he was still young, he traveled with his uncle on a trading mission. Along the way, he observed how other traders behaved. Some exaggerated the quality of their goods, some hid defects, some argued loudly to win a negotiation. But he didn't follow any of that. Instead, he quietly maintained his integrity, even if it meant selling less or earning less in the short term. And ironically, that was exactly what made him more successful in the long run. His honesty became the reason people sought him out instead of others. That mindset inspired me. I decided that for the next few weeks, I would try to apply the same principle to every single customer interaction, no matter how small. If someone asked whether the product was really good, I would tell them honestly, "It's good, but this part is a bit delicate, so please handle it carefully." If someone asked why the price was higher than another seller, I would explain politely instead of lowering my price immediately. I told them, "I try to maintain quality, and I want to make sure you get something that lasts." And surprisingly, many customers responded with respect instead of irritation. But the most interesting thing happened one afternoon. A customer wanted to buy an item and asked if I could ship it immediately. I checked my stock and realized that one of the items had a minor scratch. In the past, I would have ignored it and shipped it anyway, assuming the customer wouldn't notice or wouldn't complain. But this time, something inside me refused. I messaged the customer and said, "I can ship it today, but I want to let you know there's a small scratch. I can send a photo. If you want to wait for a perfect one, I can get new stock tomorrow." I expected the customer to cancel, but instead they said, "Thank you for telling me. I appreciate it. Please send it as it is. It's okay." That moment shocked me. A few months earlier, I would have panicked at the idea of telling the truth. I would have thought honesty meant losing customers. But now I saw how honesty can actually deepen trust, not break it. And I felt something shift inside me, something peaceful. It was like a heavy burden I had been carrying for years suddenly became lighter. I realized I didn't need to pretend or hide things. I could just be honest, and the customers who valued honesty would naturally become loyal. As days passed, I noticed something else too. People seemed more comfortable asking questions. They chatted more politely. Some even returned repeatedly, telling me things like, "I trust buying from you," or "You explain things clearly," or "You're one of the few sellers who actually cares." I didn't do anything dramatic. I simply tried to be like the prophet in the little things, and the little things made a big difference. One night, While thinking about everything that had changed, I remembered another detail from his story that touched me deeply. When he worked for Lady Khadija radiallahu anhum, she heard so many good things about him, not just about how he sold, but how he carried himself along the journey. People spoke of him with admiration. They said he didn't cheat, didn't fight, didn't take advantage of others. They said being around him made the entire caravan feel safer. Imagine that. Just one honest young man in a group of traders could change the whole atmosphere of a journey. It made me wonder, what if every business kept someone like that? Someone who brought peace instead of pressure, sincerity instead of tricks. What would our markets look like? What would our communities feel like? I realized then that the Prophet's business success wasn't only personal, it was something that uplifted everyone around him. His presence made others better. His ethics encouraged others to follow. He didn't just build wealth, he built trust wherever he went. Thinking about this made me reflect on my own role. Maybe my business wasn't meant just to earn money. Maybe it was meant to bring a little more honesty into the world, one customer at a time. Maybe I was supposed to be someone who made people feel safe buying, safe asking questions, safe trusting again after so many disappointing experiences. And slowly, very slowly, I started seeing that business wasn't just about selling products. It was about shaping character. It was about learning patience, learning humility, learning how to speak gently, learning how to hold yourself with dignity, even when business is slow. And the more I followed this path, the more my heart felt calm. The anxiety I used to feel every day, the fear of not selling enough, the worry of being left behind, began to fade. It didn't disappear overnight, but it softened. Because now I wasn't chasing money. I was building something deeper. I was rebuilding my character, the same way the Prophet built his, quietly, steadily, through simple daily actions. And without even realizing it, that transformation became the most valuable part of my journey. As the days turned into weeks, I started noticing changes not just in my business, but in myself. It wasn't dramatic, not something that would make people say, "Wow, look at this transformation." Instead, it was quiet, internal, like the way dawn slowly pushes away darkness without anyone noticing the exact moment it happens. I didn't suddenly become a master seller. I didn't suddenly make huge profits. But there was a calmness settling inside me, and that calmness brought small, steady blessings that felt more meaningful than anything I had achieved before. The habits I learned from studying the Prophet's business ethics slowly became part of me. I found myself speaking more gently, listening more patiently, and thinking before responding. I wasn't rushing anymore. I wasn't chasing customers as if they would disappear the moment I blinked. I learned to trust the process of honesty, just like the Prophet did. And the interesting thing was, the more I trusted, the more things seemed to flow naturally. There was one afternoon that felt like a turning point. A regular customer messaged me, someone who had bought from me a few times before. I expected them to ask about a product or place an order, but instead they wrote something unexpected. "I always come back to your shop because you make buying feel easy. I don't feel scared of being disappointed." That message stayed on my screen for a long time. I reread it over and over, realizing how powerful it was for someone to say they didn't feel scared. In a world full of scams, rushed transactions, and careless sellers, making someone feel safe was a blessing I hadn't valued properly before. It reminded me of the stories of how people felt when they dealt with Prophet Muhammad SAW. They didn't just admire his intelligence or his skills, they felt secure around him. They trusted that he would never betray them, never hide something from them, never cheat, never take more than what was fair. That kind of trust cannot be bought. It can only be earned through consistency, sincerity, and compassion.